But I wanted to show you this one because it actually, I wasn't expecting this. I was going to do this one last, but this one perfectly answers your question. So this is a solo game. We're just going to reviewing it like solo still exists because we're hoping it comes back. So yeah, wishful thinking. All right, so let's have a look. This guy dropped in solo, so we don't have to worry about teams, and we're just going to be focusing on fighting mechanics, which is nice. So ends up showing up or landing in pit, and he loots up, and then we've got the first fight right here. And I'm not going to say much about the first fight. I just want you guys to look at it and look at how he plays, especially Tom. So he's using cover well here. Breaks armor first, chases, takes high ground behind him.
Nice recoil use too.
Yep, his aim was steady. He's not over aggressive even when he's chasing. He's using an arc to try and figure out where he is. Try and scout and throw down this guy. Right, and he sees the guy jumping. That's a predictable movement. He waited for the right time to go for an easy shot. He sadly missed it, but you could see he was going for the right shot. And now he's using cover, and the guy's pushing up. And when he reloads, he's completely behind cover. And he's able to crouch here as you have to. So this is really good cover usage up until that last little mag, but that's fine. So you can see that this guy is not too aggressive even when he chases. He's using cover very, very well. Overall, I would say he played this fight really cleanly.
Yeah.
Right? So this is
basically an armor delivery.
Yeah, exactly. So he played this fight very well, and he didn't even take that much damage considering how many shots he missed because of how he played. Yeah. He has about 40 health left. He got new armor now. So he took about 90 damage, but with the amount of shots he missed, he could have easily died like 40 times over, right? So what we can see from this is that this is a player that has all the fundamental skills to play very well, and at this skill level you should be able to outplay the vast majority of opponents you run into. So this is what we saw in your VOD as well. Your first fight you played very well. It took quite a while, you took your time, you made plans. That didn't always work out, but you were focusing on your fundamentals, and that's why you won. Alright, so as the game goes on, you're going to get into less predictable situations because you're moving into new areas where you're not sure about information, right? Where you drop, you know exactly how many people are around you and where, and then as you move out of that area, you have less information about what's going on, or as the game goes on. So positions like this from where you can scout, obviously very good. Again, he misses a lot of shots, but he's in a good position, and that's why he's just able to get away with that. Unfortunate climb there, but it happens. We're going to see as the game goes on, he's going to be focusing on these things less and less as he's killing people. Which happens to you as well.
That might be it. Actually.
Yeah. That's fine. That's why I wanted to go through this VOD. Because this VOD started out with one of the cleanest fights that we've reviewed so far. He played that really well, in my opinion. Other than the aim, obviously. But other than that, he played it very well. And here we can see he has the movement as well, right? That slide perfectly used the one large object in the room to block line of sight, the box. Right, so he knew he had to reload to use the box, and he properly turned around his aim, so by the time he was reloaded, he could go into tracking. Now his aim needs some work. We can see that he's playing these engages fairly cleanly when he's starting from a safe position and taking time to think about how he wants to fight it. But then as the game...
Because I can't read his prompts.
It's on PC.
Okay, it's on PC. Well,
yeah.
A couple of hours of Kovacs would fix that right up.
Exactly. So we see that he's playing well, and because of these clean engages he can get away with missing shots, and he's doing very well. But as the game goes on, he's putting himself under more and more pressure to engage quickly, right, rather than cleanly. And a clean engage will usually lead to a fast kill, even if the engage is slower, because you're waiting for the right moment and there's not much they can do against you. And you can take however long you need, but you can probably punish them very quickly. Quick engages only lead to fast kills if your skill level so far outweighs the opponent that you can kill them without them having a chance of doing anything against you. So if you were a Shizo and you're running into a new PS4 player and you grapple into him and one mag him, that's the fastest possible engage. If your skill level isn't so ridiculously far above the enemy that you can one mag him, a clean engage will always lead to faster kills than a fast engage. And that's kind of what we're going to see here. When he engages cleanly, he plays very, very well. And then as the game goes on, he's being put under more pressure, which is what we were talking about before. He wants to achieve
it says half left.
Yeah.
That's normally where it starts to get bad.
And also, think of emotional momentum, which is if you drop after losing 2 games, you're probably going to play somewhat conservatively. But your emotional state changes throughout a game, right? The panic, the pressure, the strain of getting into a fight, and then the relief and happiness and pride of winning it, those lead to swings in your emotions, in your feelings. And this is why losing a lot of games in a row can be so demoralizing, and winning a lot of games in a row can give you a great day, because you're constantly being force-fed these positive emotions after overcoming pressure. So once you go into a game and you have 5 kills, you're probably going to be playing fundamentally differently than when you drop after having lost 2 games. You kind of have to find a way to balance this out. The right way to balance that out is by thinking about clean engages, because that way you make sure that your fight starts the way it has to. But this person, his first couple fights, and we saw the same for you, they played very safely, because they probably lost the games before this. So they died, it felt bad, they can feel that pressure, and so they're playing safe. Now they have 2 kills already, they're running out of zone, and he's about to wreck these 2 people because he third parties at the right time. Now his confidence is high, because the first fight was high pressure, right? So in a high pressure scenario, he used his cover very well, and his recoil control very well, and he predicted the enemy very well, so he outplayed that enemy. Then he was slightly more confident in the second fight, where he gave up his high ground, but still he scouted, he had a clean engage, his movement was good, so he was able to outplay the enemy with that. Slightly less effort in the first fight, still a positive result. So emotional momentum keeps going forward positively. Then right here, he ends up being really lucky. This has nothing to do with skill, and so he gets 2 kills very
just one
quickly.
hack both of them.
Exactly. But again, positive emotional reinforcement, which leads to more confident and less clean play. Now, confidence is good, but you don't want to be overconfident, right? You need to be confident enough to make plays very quickly, but you keep on to make English, dude, it's hard. You want to make them cleanly. And that's kind of the problem here, is once you start doing well in a game, you start playing less clean because you become more confident. Unless, of course, all the fights are very close and risky. You'll notice after running into a very good opponent, your next fight you'll approach differently. So you need to become in control of your emotional state, basically, throughout the game. And the way you do that is by focusing on your engages, making sure they're always clean, no matter how good or bad the enemy is, or how many kills you're on.
Yeah, that might be a good way to build up the endurance and momentum, because even across games too, it extends, just because
absolutely,
you have a terrible game in one, you start to get really critical of what you're doing in every fight. It starts to make you more emotional, because you're going, have I learned anything? I'm playing like a bot, even as you're doing the things, you know you're doing them wrong.
Yep.
But you know, and then you start comparing yourself to people that you've seen before, for instance, Dizzy, that sort of thing. Then you go, well, you know, why am I not Dizzy yet? And then because you're thinking about Dizzy, you start to play like Dizzy, and then you die, because Dizzy does not position in public games.
Well, he does, but he it depends on the fight, obviously, because like we said before, if your skill level is high enough that you can one-mag the opponent, you should forego a clean engage, because you can have such a fast engage that is the cleanest possible engage you're going to get. But that just has to do with the fact that Dizzy can kill somebody in such a quick period of time that the average enemy's reaction times are almost as long as the time he needs to kill somebody. So punishing them as fast as he can, even if he has shitty positioning, gives him such a huge advantage by abusing the fact that they're so much slower than him, that going for a position actually makes the fight worth for someone like Dizzy. But if the skill level isn't so ridiculously huge, that's not the case. And that's why copying pro players doesn't work.
It's the one mag thing, because
if you can't one mag them, you need a good engage.
One bullet, then he's done badly, because if they notice him, suddenly it's a fair fight.
Exactly.
And then he doesn't have any advantages, he dies. Damn,
so
that's what he's doing wrong.
Emotional momentum is about understanding how your previous games and your current game is going to affect the way you play, and trying to balance that out by always following the same steps in your fights. If you have a routine of which steps you're taking, then you can balance out that emotional momentum swing. Because most of us don't think about our emotions when we play, it just happens in the background, and then we tell ourselves, like, why did I do that again? I did that the last 3 games as well, and I said I wasn't going to do it, so why did I play like that again? Well, it's because you won the first 3 fights, and you became confident, right? You lost that pressure from the game you lost, and it got washed away by the confidence of winning a fight. So it's the confidence that kills give me that gets me to be more sloppy in my cover. This is making a lot of sense. Don't know why I didn't see it. Exactly. So something that, honestly, at this point may as well be my catchphrase for stream when I'm playing, is I'll die to something. I'll say, oh, chat, this is why I died. I'm not going to do that in the next game. I don't do it in the first 2 fights the next game, and then I do it again, and then I'm like, I'm a moron. What am I doing? I literally said 13 minutes ago I wasn't going to do it again, and now I did it again. Why? Because when I was under pressure and feeling bad for losing, I didn't do it again. And then when I felt good for wiping 2 squads, I forgot. That's how your brain works. And you can't, emotions are a part of who you are and how you play, so you need to not ignore them just because you think they're not relevant. Right here again, just like before, we saw that he waited with his shot for the enemy to be in a predictable animation. So if his aim was better, he would have hit this shot, but he's taking the fight well, but he's confident now, right? He got really easy kills, so he's pretty much even just ignoring that there's somebody shooting on his left, which is the first mistake. There's literally somebody close to him that he can sandwich. That's what he should focus on, or at least be looking at. Alright, so what I wanted you to look at, Tom, is, and chat as well, of course. I said at the first fight, I'm not going to talk about it much. I just want you to remember. So, for those that forgot, we're going to go look at the first fight really quickly, and we're just going to look at his cover usage and his aim right here. Sorry, a couple seconds earlier. So, right here he has an RE45. His aim is really steady, and he's using cover well. He doesn't over-aggress when he chases, and then when the Octane ends up pushing him, right here, he stays calm and he uses cover very, very well. Right, because he probably just lost his last 2 or 3 games, so he is under pressure.
Because it's the start. Yeah.
Exactly, right? So he's in a neutral or, pressured emotional state, and that's why he's trying to play as best as he can. And then we're gonna go to later in the game. Right here, he's got 4 easy kills, and he just lost a kill to an enemy, because that enemy, of course, was very much out in the open. So now look at how he engages this fight. His weapons aren't fully reloaded. He's spamming, he's sliding, he's out in the open, he's not using cover. He's trying to overwhelm the enemy, right? And he's trying to beat the enemy just off of mechanics, and so he ends up getting the kill here. But see the difference in the fight after 4 kills versus after losing a game. See the difference in how he approaches. It's a world of difference. This dude, Mike, is still the same player. He's still as good as he was at the start of that first fight. He still has what it takes for such a clean engage. And this enemy was way worse than the first enemy he fought. This enemy was way worse than the Octane. Right? It's the lack of pressure and the confidence that made him play poorly. And this is why you want to control.
Just what if this guy had a Spitty or a Devotion?
What if he hit any shots? Like he would have literally killed him. This became a straight aim duel because he was confident because he has 4 kills. He forced a straight duel. Even though he was in a position from high ground with a longbow, he knew where the enemy was, etc, etc. He had the opportunity to go for a clean engage here. Now, of course, he got one extra shot off at the start, so he wanted to push on an advantage, but he could have done that a million times cleaner, and we've seen evidence that this guy has what it takes to engage cleanly. So, I understand that he wanted to be the aggressor here and push the advantage, but we see that he forgoes all the things that he knows and that he's been practicing because he loses himself in his emotions. That point is so important. Nice one, coach. Yeah, this took me longer to figure out in my FPS career than I would like to admit, but this is something that as a coach you don't learn until you start coaching pro players, because pro players are usually very young and they spend their entire day on the game, and so the game starts dictating their emotional state throughout their entire life. And for a lot of players, how well they do in tournaments and how well they play with their team is completely dependent on whether they're on a win streak and a losing streak. So as a coach you really have to learn to identify that and understand and work with the emotional state of your players to make sure that they can perform when they're on stage, because obviously being on stage is a lot of pressure for a lot of newer pro players. And here we can see how that factors into regular play. And honestly, like, you can't force your heart not to beat faster when you're under pressure. That comes with experience, that comes with paying attention to it and to your breathing. But what you can do is just make sure that you have steps that you always follow at the start of a fight, and that way you at least ensure some semblance of consistency. So we're gonna go up again, brimming with confidence now, obviously. He also ends up finding a Mastiff here, even more confident. There's only 2 players left. But at the beginning of the game, notice...
see how this is gonna go.
Yeah. And then he finds the second to last opponent here. So at the beginning of the game, notice how safe he was playing and how damn many opportunities he gave himself against that Octane to win the fight. He missed 4 million shots, but he kept playing safe until eventually he killed the Octane. And now look at the difference against this guy.
Out of cover.
Now he's reloading out of cover, exactly. And the same is what you did.
Left and right next
yes.
to it. Yeah.
And this is why I wanted to show you this VOD and why I wanted your thoughts on it. He does the exact same thing that you did, which is I can see that he has the experience and the mindset to try and use this truck for cover. Right? He clearly gravitates close to it, and you can see in his movement that in his mind this is his cover. He's anchoring this position, he understands it. But he doesn't actually use it because he's confident, and so he wants to kill. His mind is on killing and not on fighting cleanly. So see, next to cover, but he's not actually using it. Again, his path. He has cover that he can use in this path. You can see that he automatically gravitates towards it. But still, predictable, straightforward. Doesn't actually go through the door, so he does actually stop himself in time there. I like that he takes a less predictable angle here and uses an incendiary. So he does end up catching himself after a little bit, but you can see the difference in his approach and his playstyle, right? Just from the beginning of the game and the end. And especially now, in solos with 3 players left, in such an open area as this, we're going over to the circle 5, it's a very small circle. This is where you want to play clean. There's only 2 enemies left. All you need to do is kill 2 enemies and you win this game with 7 kills. Nothing can change that fact. It's a very simple game. Just play clean right now. Don't be confident, be clean. Be confident at the start, where anything can happen and there's a lot of enemies, so that if you're lucky you start with a high kill game. That makes more sense.
Like you do,
and this move I really liked, by the way. Did you see this? He had a Mastiff, he found another Mastiff, so he didn't drop it off the map, but he dropped it somewhere further away, so the enemies couldn't take it. Genuinely a smart move. Mastiff is the most powerful weapon in the game, so there you go.
Yeah. I thought he was going to run double Mastiff for a moment.
For a second I thought as well. So right here we can actually see how having a bad approach because he's not playing as safely actually leads him to playing more clean in this fight. So I'll show you what I mean. He turns around the corner here and he kind of forgot to keep track of this Bangalore. It's okay, he got distracted, it happens because she was hiding in there for a while. Because of that she gets the first shots on him and deals more damage to him and breaks his armor than he does. And you instantly see that that bad engage leads him to play smarter. It leads him to play safer. Look, now he is using cover. Against that exact same opponent earlier, he wasn't using cover. So notice how a different engage leads to different confidence, leads to the fight going completely differently. And this is why your engage matters so much. Because confidence changes like that. He just went from being the most confident guy into the lobby to thinking I probably messed up. And he did. Because now she can chase him. Even though he had a good engage on her at the start. He didn't reset the engage because he was confident and now he dies. But we saw at the start of the game how well he played against that Octane. This opponent was not good enough that they should have beaten him. This guy should have won this game. Like, he had the skills, they just didn't stay calm enough.